Okay. All right. Hello, I'm Aaron Morales with the U.S. Department of Energy Alumni Network. Welcome to another edition of Trailblazers and Transformers, where we're telling the stories of our alumni community and those who might be the unsung heroes of some truly great work that's taking place behind the scenes at the department. My co-host Liz Pitterman has the night off. Today's featured Trailblazer and Transformer, or TNT, worked at the department's grid deployment office, where she served as a director of communications. She led a team who specialized in making complex issues around our grid infrastructure upgrades into easy-to-understand, community-driven stories. She's an incredible leader. She's an incredible storyteller. She's a great friend, and an even greater friend of the network. Katie Weeks, congrats on being this week's Trailblazer and Transformer.
Thank you.
Glad to feature you on this episode for a number of different reasons, because of your work at the department, because of your contributions to the network. The fun fact, this whole initiative too, thanks to you, which we'll dive into later on. But before we get into that work and before we get into work at the DOE, I want to know Katie Weeks before she, took the oath, had the wonderful experience at Forrestal, walked those linoleum halls, ate at Dunkin' Donut and Subway every day. Tell me about Katie Weeks before the oath. Where are you from? Some childhood memories and kind of your journey to public service.
Sure. Before I wandered the Forrestal / secondary set of Severance looking hallways. So I did not start out in public service, did not start out in government. I came out of school in journalism and had always really had a personal passion for storytelling. I remember writing, I was thinking about this the other day because I have a kid in second grade, and I remember being in third, fourth, fifth grade and writing stories for school projects, and found my way into the school paper and kind of got into journalism that way. I did have an interest in the political realm and the government realm. I had a minor in poli-science and political science and really found that very interesting, but came out of school in journalism and magazines and fell into the architecture and design industry. And so was in the building realm and for about 15 years telling stuff there. And one of the really key things that led me to my career 2.0 coming out of that industry was I spent a lot of time writing about things that other people were doing and wanted to start shifting my career to doing stuff with people on the ground, boots on the ground, having impact at scale. And that kind of set me off on this 2.0 trajectory, more into the nonprofit sector and then eventually into government, of trying to really get on the ground and working on stories of impact and talking to the people doing the real work, and being in organizations that were doing more of the hand-holding, supportive. I've always found that super rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of stumbled my way into energy a little bit from the built environment. I really love sustainability, and my dad would show anyone a video from fifth grade of my speech on pollution, of how far back it tracks, but had naturally gravitated there in my last few years in publishing. And so that was energy efficiency, all that sort of stuff. When I took the pivot out of publishing, it was into the energy efficiency policy and real estate realm. So very naturally into stakeholder engagement type stuff. And then very luckily, when the Clean Energy Corps started up and all the hiring was happening, and heard about these awesome new opportunities, I got my foot in the door and then found my way to GDO, or the Grid Deployment Office. And right away I was like, this is such an amazing opportunity with a great group of people. How can I get in there?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about starting at DOE. S3 was a realigned vertical. There were multiple offices with fresh teams that had been restructured or were coming in new. You mentioned the Clean Energy Corps. Tell me a little bit about the work that you were developing.
Yeah, I think, GDO was a brand new office under S3 that had some legacy programs that came over from a few existing offices, but mainly had 3 big tranches of power grid deployment work that was going on. We had $26 billion from Bill and IRA, and then we're really focused on how do we get out the project money and the project supports for boots on the ground to improve the power grid. And so it had 3 tranches. One was looking at power supply, essentially, and generation. So the Civil Nuclear Credit Program was rolling out under their hydroelectric efficiency incentives. I'm like tripping over the words.
And that's why we had acronyms.
Yeah, all the government acronyms. We had a transmission focus that looked on permitting and
Mm.
also funding to support line build out, line improvements across the country, and then a grid modernization effort that included the Puerto Rico work was under GEO as well, supporting the grid rebuild there. So really exciting time. And I remember when I was interviewing, talking with the teams about how the power grid's this amazing thing and this amazing invention that affects our daily lives all the time. And yet most people never think about it until something negative happens or the power's not there. But there are different ways that we can teach people about how this is so integral to our daily life and how we can make improvements and how it lays the track for the future of what we want to build anywhere on all the different levels. So it was really exciting to come in and do that and try and figure out how do we tell these stories in different ways? Like there's an element of you've got all this money, set up these new programs. So we got to tell people about these new things. We got to get them to apply to the programs. And then there's also how do we tell the human element so that people understand what the money is going towards and how it gets to the end users and what's the benefit to a community in Louisiana that loses their power 6 times more than the next community over and why they should care about this funding coming to their community so they can advocate for it or they can make sure that their voice is heard in the projects and stuff. So it was a really interesting challenge to come in and say, here's this new thing. It's, like a lot of the S3 offices, it's R&D, like the traditional R&D exploration of DOE, but also now heavy support in actual project execution. And so how do you bridge that gap and get people to understand and really feel the impact? I said earlier about wanting to shift an organization with more boots on the ground. When the opportunity came in to come to DOE, like how much bigger can you get of this has positive benefit on millions and millions of lives? And how do I help tell those stories so people understand that?
I think you guys were doing an incredible job. And tell me a little bit about you built this really awesome team of communicators, whether it's folks like Evan Barry, who was focused on Puerto Rico, you had Javon
Yep.
Goodman, who was doing incredible work on the digital side. Tell me about a time, or is there a specific project where you were able to get creative with relaying the impacts, like community impacts?
Yeah, I was thinking about this on school drop off this morning, and I think there's 3, if you don't
Nice.
mind.
Please.
'Cause they're all kind of different. And it kind of, when I think back of all the cool things that we got to try and test, like that's the other thing I really appreciated about the GDO team and the DOE team was like, let's go big. Let's try this. Let's try doing something different. So the first one that comes to mind is that, it does have real world impacts, especially when there's a big storm or something. And one of the things that was really exciting and really challenging and really high profile, which also put some pressure on it, was after hurricanes Helene and Milton went through the Southeast. The secretary and the president flew down, and we had, at the time, it was the GRIP program, Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnerships program, to invest in power grid upgrades and a lot of resilience work. And we were prepping for a larger launch of awards that had already been decided, but were asked to package up and tell the story of the awards that would be going to the 6 states that had been hit by the hurricane. And so it was a very quick pivot. You get the call, you have 3 days, this thing's happening. And it was really great to be working hand in hand with the teams and really pulling out like, okay, what does this really mean besides kilowatts or a microgrid or these components, that these technical things that we're talking about, what's it going to mean on the ground for these communities that are like really hurting right now? And how do we sum that up in ways that can be easily relayed to the secretary or the president to work it in? And that was like a very fun, like the adrenaline's pumping and just like pulling from people who are at the top of their game across all the different teams was such a great and rich experience and like
Nice.
very fun to say, hey mom, watch this thing, I worked on that. And like we used to have a running joke that one of our goals was to get on Lester Holt, to have Lester Holt say something that we were
Nice.
working on, and it was like, we
Yeah.
did it, we got it on there. And so that was like a fun like harnessing the impact of what DOE really does in daily lives and being able to showcase that and really feel like you're contributing in this moment of stress and turmoil for a lot of people. Conversely, like a totally different thing, but kind of related to grid situations, but trying new things, is Evan, who led our Puerto Rico communications work and is now doing amazing work for the city of Boston in their environmental division. A couple of things that we did there was really dive a lot deeper into bilingual communications and how do we reach a predominantly Spanish speaking audience in a ways that resonate with them, that get them the materials they need, that roll out these programs that are extremely dependent on community engagement and community activation to make sure that the money is going to the families and the people that need it. We had a big tranche of money going to people who had medical devices that were dependent on power systems. So how do we get them solar and battery systems to make sure that they're protected when there are grid disruptions? And we got to try some really, really cool stuff. Like Evan had this idea of, they're called Tumba Cocos, and they are trucks that drive around Puerto Rico with big speakers and they play broadcast messages. And it was, we put together a proposal and had a Tumba Coco deployed to like yell out DOE's message and recruit people to the Energy Resilience Fund and the community things that were happening. And it was just like, oh, I would never think to try that. I would never get the chance to try that somewhere else, but it was like a very unique thing that he identified, and our Puerto Rico team said like, oh yeah, those are super effective and also like kind of annoying in a good way. And how do we try these new things? So that was just a very fun exploration that still like sticks in my mind of, yeah, we did something different there in a way to try and engage really everyday people in this big thing that we were trying to do that brought the several, however, $100 million we were trying to deploy, brought it down to the kitchen table discussion that they were having. So those are like two of the big ones. The third one that I was going to bring up was a video series that we were starting to do right towards the end of my time at DOE, which was we were shifting from launching big programs and the big dollar totals and then starting to be able to tell the stories of the actual projects and tell them through the voices of the people on the ground. So very similar to the video series that Public Affairs was putting out around a lot of the Biden administration accomplishments. We were digging into projects, but took a bit more of like a fun, lighthearted sort of approach to it and had videos about a mayor in Horry County, South Carolina, saying like, I don't even know what GDO stands for, but give me a hug. We run on hugs down here. And that's why, and it's because tourism is so important and we need the grid to support our tourism. And so it was like this fun way and talking to the local business owners. And I just love the way those stories came together. Because again, it's real people talking about like, I don't get the acronym and I don't know how this stuff works, but I know I need it for this. And that's what makes it important to me.
Keep the lights on for us and we'll be supportive.
Yeah, there was one guy and there was a taffy maker in Colorado who was like, I don't care how the power gets here, but I need it to get to my taffy store. And it was like, we got you.
In the video series, I just loved talking to you guys every week and getting updates on where things stood with that. And Jose was great, and Dylan and all of them were involved in that front. So I'm glad that's a shining spot for you. Just because it was
Jose
awesome.
Reyes and Dylan Reed and the whole team, if anybody sees them out in their networks.
And you served as a lead actually for the communications working group for the network. You talk about team building at GDO, and you were doing team building with the network to help kind of create the foundation that's led to a lot of these fun projects that we can do now, including this one, which is Katie Weeks's idea come to life. So we've been excited to be talking to people and telling stories. Tell me a little bit about kind of the idea that you had behind it and like why it's so important to kind of even talking about relaying people's humanity and stories. Trailblazers and Transformers, unsung heroes. Tell me a little bit about the importance of talking about our community.
Yeah, and I cannot claim credit for the original idea. I have to credit Jason Hartke, who was the director of the building's technology office in ERE for a number of years. And when there were a lot of people leaving the department, Jason, who's now with the Well Building Institute, which certifies healthy buildings, put together a Unsung Heroes celebration last summer. And it was really lovely. He sourced recommendations and nominations from across the department, across departmental partners, grantees, all of that, about people who had worked at the department that should be lifted up for their service, and had a celebration event here in DC that was really lovely to attend. And it just, the thought of recognizing not just the people that were maybe always the spokespeople or always out on the front lines, but also the people who were the contract administrators or the technical people behind the scenes that, just work quietly in the background but are so essential. And I think about that stuck with me. I think about it a lot, about these people who have years and years of federal government experience and really were so critical in making things function, um, and didn't get the recognition that they deserved, whether they were retiring or leaving the department for other reasons or are still at the department. And I think that really stuck with me. So when we were thinking about how to, with the network, how do we showcase and build the community? Part of that is really showing the people in it. And so Jason's concept came to mind immediately of, this is something we could jump off of to bring the stories and the people of the network to life in ways that showcase the real humans behind the big numbers, the big projects, the big entity that is DOE, because it really is all humans who make it up. We're all individuals that work in this collective good. And so how do we celebrate all of those different types of people that contribute to that?
Well, we're excited to continue telling more stories. And more importantly, we're excited to tell your story and give you space. And thank you for coming up with the idea, and making sure that our community feels seen. I want to continue. I want to go one layer deeper, and I'll just ask you a quick question: chips and queso or chips and guac?
Chips and guac, always.
Chips and guac. There we go. Another question: if you had a walk-up song, what would that walk-up song be?
I'm not, I don't know if I have, I don't know if I can commit to just one, but I will say
It's
I
a
have a,
full entrance.
I have a kid who's really into Eye of the Tiger right now. So maybe I'll just go with that.
Okay, nice. Is he watching Rocky or something for the first time going through the series?
No, I don't know how he stumbled on it, but he does ask for that at bedtime. So it's not really
Oh,
like a
okay,
calm down bedtime song,
nice.
but
He's getting ready for the
it
next
works.
days. It's his
Yeah,
words of affirmation, self-affirmation.
exactly.
That's awesome. What's your favorite childhood meal that you remember?
I will say it's a dessert that my mom made that
Okay.
it's called milfait. It's a French pastry, but we made the homemade version, which is really like pudding, whipped cream, and graham crackers kind of all layered together. And it's amazing with some icing sugar. It's so good. Now we make it as birthday celebrations in my family, like with my kids and stuff. That's like
Yeah,
the new dish because we loved it so much growing up, and my husband had never heard of it. My kids had never heard of it. So
it's
that's
amazing.
probably my fun memory that's now a new memory for our family.
There are a lot of folks, who you talk about the everyday people behind the scenes at the department who are doing important work. There are still people at the department who are still doing incredible work and kind of keeping the train on the tracks. And one day there's going to be a new generation of people who are going to step up to the plate and take that oath at the department. For people that may one day consider a career in public service, what's some advice that you have for them?
Think it one thing is to ignore the culture wars that are going on around public service and really ground yourself in the mission and the impact. And I will say, being in the private sector now, that is something that I miss. I still have impact and mission in different ways, but I miss that grounding of what you get in government service. And my husband works for county government, so I still see it every day in our house, of that serving the greater good and the impact that you can have, really honing in on that and tuning out the noise. That would probably be my biggest thing. That's what still attracts me to supporting anyone I can in public service, and figuring out ways that I can still contribute even if I'm not in public service directly at this time. But I've had a lot of conversations with people, friends in our neighborhood and our community, who come from other agencies who also have left for various reasons. And it's more than a job when you talk to most of these people. And so I think really remembering that it's rewarding in so many different ways. So when you can turn out the noise of it's this or it's that, or there's stereotypes about what feds aren't and aren't, and ground yourself in the impact that you can have, it just anchors you in a way that gets you through any of that chaos.
Speaking about the greater mission at large, The network has so many opportunities for folks to get involved. And, it can be for something that's short term. You can put on a hat for a little bit and jump in on a few projects, provide recommendations, brainstorm, be a soundboard for different folks. You jumped in to lead the communications working group. And came up with incredible ideas, and that's why we're connected here today. If you could describe the DOE Alumni Network in one word, what word would that be, and why would you recommend that people get involved?
If I had to choose just one word, I would probably choose community, because it's a multifaceted word and it can have a lot of depth to it. And a community is there whether you directly need its support at a specific time or whether you don't. And I appreciate that around those different types of connections that you can plug in when you have capacity. Some other times you're not going to have that capacity, but you're feeding this larger community when you're part of it. So that's kind of where my head goes with it, because I feel like it is that living embodiment. It's not about one specific project. It's not about one specific person or one specific date or happening, but it's really about creating the ecosystem that can support one another in different ways. And you meet it continues to grow. It's a living ecosystem, which is also really great as well.
Katie, any other final moments you want to talk about? Any other final things you want to get off your chest? Final comments?
No pressure. I so enjoyed my time at DOE. I'm so happy to still be connected to it and so greatly appreciate all the people that I was able to have cross my path in some way through the agency and the department. And whether they're still there now or they're spread out elsewhere, and whatever we end up working on together in the future, it's just been such a tremendously rewarding experience that I didn't expect in my short time there. I was only there just under 3 years. So just really appreciate the efforts of the network and the efforts of the people, the DOE alumni as individuals who are out there supporting each other, still trying to support each other as people are looking for where their next step is or people settling in. I'm just very grateful that I get to be part of that ecosystem in some way, because it has really positively affected me. I guess that's what I would wrap with. It's just like, thank you for letting me be part of it. I continue to be full of gratitude for being part of this larger community in different shapes and forms, and hope that continues.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you are a part of it and glad that you've been a leader in so many different efforts. So we appreciate you. Thank you, Katie.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.